Commissioner Kennedy,
Here.
Commissioner Giggins,
Here.
Commissioner Harris, and Commissioner Rubin.
Yes, here.
Thank you. So, we have a code of conduct. I'm not going to read the code. Familiar, we discussed a lot of difficult issues here. The public weighs in. We are frank and persistent, but so, just ask everyone to, honor our code of conduct, especially, St. Anne's today. Currently are homeless, but we are, really happy to be hosted by St. Anne's, and so we're gonna take up the approval of our prior January 19th. There a second?
Second.
Right. Agrees? And they're approved. I'm gonna take some, we have some reports, and I am gonna take a report out of order. Because I think we, happy to announce that we have our new, sheriff here with us at St. Anne's at this public hearing to, engage with us, and he has a lot of his management team here. Really nice to see so many leaders of the LA County Sheriff's Department here at the Civilian Oversight Commission. I think it's important that we have leadership here to hear from the public and hear from the commissioners about the issues that are of concern. And so, Sheriff Luna, I'm going to actually turn it over to you. I'm going to take you out of order to talk about whatever you would like to, but we want to, I think I really speak for all the commissioners when I say thank you for being here.
Well, good morning, and thank you for allowing us to be here today. And although I'm sitting up here as your sheriff, I don't do this alone. So I do have several of our team members here who are ready to testify on the issues that all of you are asking about. Very important issues, and I think you'll find not only that they are very competent in the field that they'll be talking about, but more importantly, they're not only here to present, we're here to listen. We're here to hear all of your questions, learn from you, and even if we don't have the answers, we're going to tell you we don't have the answers, but our job is to go back and find those answers, whatever those may be. And you do see several of our team members here today. I do have Assistant Sheriff Jill Torres on the phone, who's our CFO. He'll be answering any budget-related questions that come up. And then Eileen Decker, who's listed on my list here, but she won't be here. I think most of you know I announced her as the head of our constitutional policing office that we're going to start. And when I asked her last night about being here this morning, she smiled at me and she said, Sheriff, you've given me a long list of things to do, and I've got to start working on it tonight, which was last night. So she was diligently in the Hall of Justice working on a very lengthy list of things that this community expects from the Sheriff's Department. So with that, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you. It was heartening to hear the opening of a constitutional policing office, Sheriff. All meaningful 21st century policing reforms are built on a commitment to constitutional policing. So thank you for instituting that long overdue. We have reports from others. I don't have anything to report, so I'm going to turn it over to our executive director, who might have something to report. No.
Before COVID hit, we had wanted to make a presentation to one of our previous chairs to thank her, chair of the commission. So I just wanted to very briefly give this plaque to former chair of the commission, well, from July 2021 to say, thank you on behalf of all of us. During the so thank you.
And, it's never too late.
One last, I'm not sure where everyone is. Thank the commissioners for your support over the past 6 years. Quite a ride for me, but I really want to take a moment to thank the incredible staff, those who are here, and a couple of staff members who are no longer with the commission. They're absolutely the best staff on the planet. They do so much that you would not recognize that's going on behind the scenes, and it goes unheralded, and sometimes we don't thank them enough. So I wanted to publicly thank you all, staff members, for the hard work that you've done in making the commission into what it is. And I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you all from across the street, but I'll continue to work with you all, but I just wanted to say thank you.
Brian, I don't know what we're gonna do without you. Of course.
Yeah, I just wanted to super acknowledge how wonderful and fantastic you have been as our inaugural executive director. You know, we didn't know what we were doing, and we found our way. We certainly found our way under your leadership and the leadership of the staff. And it's been an extraordinary time for all of us, for our communities. And you've just been an exemplary leader. You're always so steady. You're always so brilliant. And we're going to miss you, but we're going to still follow all the good stuff you're going to do in terms of public safety, social justice, as you continue on your career. But don't be a stranger. We hope you'll come to some of our meetings.
Thank you, Patty.
Could I also say, Sean, I really want to thank Brian for his.
Max, the Office of Inspector General is on the schedule to make a report. Do you have anything you would like to tell us and the public?
Relating to one of the agenda items coming up, we have one of the conditions in the jail, one attention of the commission. The fact that the sheriff's department appears to be engaging in tethering, violation of policy against tethering. Some years back brought to the sheriff's department's attention that fixed restraints were being used on people in inappropriate ways. And working with them, we got them to adopt a policy which provided limited circumstances under which people could be tethered and a procedure that was meant to restrict how often it was used without prohibiting it. The procedure provides for when a person is tethered, they must immediately be subject to 15-minute welfare checks, essentially by medical personnel. There's a log that needs to be prepared to document all these things, and there's a set of notifications that go up the chain as time goes by. And when the court ordered that we stop chaining people to benches, something that the sheriff's department excluded from its tethering policy initially, although I believe inappropriately. When that was ordered by the court, I pointed out that it would be impossible to simply move shelves around and solve this problem. The county set about a procedure whereby we increased mental health housing in other places, but we didn't get more staff. We didn't have more real ability to care for people. So all we did was hid the problem, moved it out of IRC, or so I suspected. But we learned this week that that was true. We learned that for months, the sheriff's department has been tethering people to gurneys with a fixed restraint in violation of its own policy, it appears. In some specific instances that we asked about this week when we learned about it, we were told there was indeed no such log as is required by sheriff's department policy. In one case, my office reviewed video and confirmed what a deputy told us, which is that a particular person had been tethered for 24 hours. So the problem that used to exist in IRC in view of the court has now been moved into the shadows. The good news is that management who's present learned about it earlier in the week, gave some orders to stop it. And also, initially that appeared to be ineffective. There was a management order to stop it. It continued. We observed it afterwards. But as of yesterday, as far as we could tell, the word may have gotten out and it may have stopped. We'll see. But the reason I bring it up isn't just because of what happened. It's because I believe it is a symptom that will continue, that as long as we have our jails overcrowded, we will see IRC continue to be shut down repeatedly. We will continue to see people's constitutional rights violated, either in the IRC or elsewhere, simply because we lack the capacity to care for the number of people we have in our jails now, particularly the mentally ill. Dr. Belovich, who's responsible for such care, addressed the Board of Supervisors not long ago in my presence and told them that we cannot come into compliance with our legal obligations without reducing population. There is no budgetary way to increase care so that we can comply with what the court has ordered us. And I would say, although he did not say this, what the Constitution demands. That is the extent of my report, although I'm happy to answer any questions. Let me say on a more positive note, I echo what everybody said about the sheriff being here with all his staff. It is such a breath of fresh air. The issue that I just told you about, my staff worked closely with Under Sheriff Aloma on this issue, and the sheriff department did not feign interest. They really cared and made an effort to do something about it. The problem I'm complaining about is a county problem that we are not complying with our legal obligations because of the way our system bureaucracy works, not through any evil on the part of the administration or the deputies in the jail. The deputies in the jails are the first ones to complain to us about the condition. Obviously, prisoners are suffering more, but the deputies sure see it and would like to see something done. I'm not going to knock the desire of the sheriff's department to improve or the desire of the county. I am trying to knock the actual success that we're having currently with this problem. And then I also want to say I'm very excited about the constitutional policing announcement of the sheriff. That will make a world of difference. Expect to lose. I probably should have started with the good news before I did the bad news, but you know me, I always got straight to the bad news.
Yes, Leo.
Thank you, Max, for that. What my question to you and Sheriff Luna and the rest of the staff is, what can this commission do to move the county to assist the sheriff and ultimately members of the community on ending this practice?
The only thing that can be done to change the conditions in the jail is reduce the population. And we have a constitutional obligation to do it immediately, and we have a legal mechanism to do it immediately. The legal mechanism we have is not necessarily the best way to do it. So what I would say it would be best for this commission to recommend to the county as a whole is to pursue some available tools to improve their ability to reduce the population of the jail and to do it immediately. And what I'm specifically referring to is we're in front of Judge Pragerson of the federal court, who has granted an injunction at the request of the ACLU. The county essentially joined in it. The thing to do is to walk down to the court with a proposal from county council for how we reduce the population significantly within the jail in an intelligent way. There's a legal way that's less intelligent, which is we currently release people on certain bail amounts, with a bail cap below which, a floor below which the sheriff's department will release you under Rutherford in the practice for years. And we simply increase that number, and that will kick out a bunch of people. We can also reduce the percentage of county jail sentences that people serve, and we can substantially reduce the population of the jail tomorrow legally. However, that's not the best method, because we now have a lot of people in our jails who come from other places. So that's a less targeted group. Because the Constitution demands certain treatment for people, we can walk into a federal judge and he can issue almost any order that allows us to work around the state laws. California state laws do not trump the Constitution. So that judge can order any crafted remedy that this body, county council, the sheriff's department, and other justice partners come up with. Problem is that we just keep kicking the can down the street and not doing that. So what I would suggest we recommend, not we, you, I recommended it already, is let's craft an order, let's get a judge to sign off it, let's get all the parties involved to say, yes, this is the best plan. Pick one that has the least impact on public safety, and move forward with that. That would be my suggestion.
I agree with that, and, I would ask the chair to, either form a committee or, direct one of the newly formed ad hoc committees to work, to come up with something that, ultimately we can present, on behalf of commission and the county and the jail to finally take care of this issue.
I think, Brian, do we have a committee, right, on custody? Whose chair is that? Is it? Irma. Can we do that? If just suggest it? Can we have your committee, look into this and, make a report and push this issue forward? Because you're right, Max, I just wanted to clarify, when you say tethered, like we're talking about chaining someone to a fixed location?
I'm not sure chain is the right word, but a physical, essentially equivalent of a handcuff. I think they use cuffs that are less painful to attach them to a gurney so that they cannot move. When we first brought up the tethering problem, it was used in a more aggressive way in which people were tethered to a fixed point in a cell, often because they were suspected of having contraband or something else, in a way that could compromise them physically. They couldn't even necessarily sit down effectively without stretching their arm out. So it was almost like a kind of physical torture. This is not that. This is a mentally ill person who is placed on a gurney in a place other than a cell and attached to the gurney in a way that is relatively humane in and of itself, mechanically. But the problem is no different than the tethering to a bench that we had present in the IRC over a period of time. The problem is the passage of time, not the pain or the physical strain.
Max, I apologize if I'm being too scatological, but how do people go to the restroom?
In IRC, when the practice of connecting people to the front bench was most prevalent before the court order, the deputies would come and allow a person to go escort the person to the bathroom. So the fact that a person would spend 24 hours attached to a bench was not a nonstop process. They were allowed bathroom breaks. Food was brought to them. However, obviously it creates some challenges. Sometimes the people might want to go to the bathroom more often than the available staff can take them. So people would defecate right there at times. We're dealing with mentally ill people, so they don't always act in a rational way. So if they're told, wait 10 minutes, they might not wait 10 minutes. And I personally witnessed a deputy reluctantly giving a Dixie cup of water to a person who asked for it. And my staff had to go and have a chat with that deputy about the fact that if you don't allow people to hydrate who are mentally ill, and not, this person was old, over a period of a long period of time, you're going to substantially harm that person. So it's not that they don't get a chance to go to the bathroom. They do. It's that a person is fixed in a place that's not an appropriate place to live. It's the condition of it. And then there's the chance that, oh, we're a little busy right now, you're going to have to go later. There's a variety of problems that can arise, but it is not that somebody said, oh, just chain that person and ignore them. It's not intentional mistreatment, but what ends up happening is unacceptable.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Sheriff, you look like you have something to say here.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank the Inspector General for bringing this forward. I'm actually, I guess the best way to describe it is just sadness when you hear this, because this shouldn't be happening. It's not acceptable. I am happy to hear that deputies came forward to your office to report it. I encourage any employees that see any mistreatment of anybody to come forward So that makes me really happy. And I don't know, off to the side, if you're able to give me their information so I can thank them for doing that. Maybe that's inappropriate. I know it's inappropriate in this open session. But I don't know if we have the time, sir, but if our assistant sheriff over custody can address some of the questions that the commissioners may have. Because obviously, if we're not following set policy, that is not acceptable. And we have to take immediate corrective action to make sure that we are following not only our policy, but to make sure that our partner agencies within the custody facilities, whether it be the Department of Health, mental health, that we're all making sure that we're doing the right thing to make sure our employees are in the best circumstances to serve our custody population.
Yes, I don't know if it's procedurally proper, but I think this is an important issue and we should hear from the assistant sheriff about that.
And while he's coming forward, I'll clarify, we did not learn about this because deputies told us. We learned about it because we observed it through inspections. However, once we observed it, deputies were cooperative and enthusiastic in providing us what we believe to be accurate information. I believe a commissioner who was present during some of this might have something to add.
Yes.
But I will say that we have been informed by deputies of many important things over the years and recently, but this one, I don't believe that's how it came to light.
Andre, are you that commissioner who was present?
I am that commissioner.
So with my apologies, let's hear from you and then you can.
And I wanted to ask, given the role of the ombuds people present in observing the instance of tethering, I saw the gurneys in the hallway at IRC myself and scantily clad, provisionally clad individuals on the gurneys. The question I wanted to ask was, how did the staff react when informed of the observation of tethered individuals in the hallway outside the IRC? Was it defensive, or was it acknowledging that this was a problem? Was there acknowledgement that this was possibly in violation of existing negotiated rules? And I just want to follow up by saying, we're in a tension between workarounds and acceptable rules and what kinds of remedies might get enforced. And all of that has a role in appropriate decision-making over reducing the population there. And there's a healthy tension between resorting to workarounds and what kind of solutions get adopted because of awareness of how insufficient those workarounds or how violative those policies or practices may be. So this is a healthy part of achieving a kind of appropriate intervention in reducing the population of individuals, because all of these work together to establish more meaningful and a more appropriate decisions. And I just wanted to ask Max about what reaction you got to that notification and how it relates to awareness of policies to effectuate reduction in the inmate and or individuals at the IRC in particular.
I think you correctly described the nature of the problem. This is symptomatic behavior of a fundamental problem. Staff faced with an insoluble problem are doing the best they can with workarounds. So it's not behavior. In the past, we've seen tethering used as a punishment. That's not what's happening here. What's happening is we've got a system bursting at the seams because of what we've tried to make it do. And so the people on the ground are doing their best. And they didn't necessarily read the tethering policy 5 minutes before they did this thing. They were trying to manage as best they could in what to them is an emergency. To us, we're calmly sitting here talking. There is no feces smeared on us, but down in the jails, it's not a calm situation. And so people are doing their best. I can't comment on the reactions of all the staff when we talk, nor do I think it would be productive. When we talk to people down in the line, some are angry, some are friendly. I mean, there's a variety of things, and they're human beings like anybody else. So I think it's irrelevant. I will say a Under Sheriff Aloma has always been very receptive to everything we brought up and very professional about this, as all the command staff. I just think the line staff are in an impossible situation that is not of their making at this time. There's been plenty of other times where there's a different problem, where we have nasty culture resulting in people doing horrible things to others. You know, that continues to happen and will happen more in this environment, but that's not what we're talking about here.
Sean, could I be heard at all? Can you hear me? I can't tell really. Sean? Jennifer?
Go ahead.
Okay, I don't know. This is Rob Bonner. You know, I hate to state the obvious or even try to oversimplify this issue, but it's always struck me that this is essentially a a bottleneck in the IRC. And that means it's broadly speaking, it's a process issue. And a process issue doesn't necessarily mean it's not a jail capacity issue as I see it. It's actually, if it's a capacity issue, it would be telling all the police departments, LAPD included and the sheriff's department, don't arrest people, because the sheriff is the jailer. He's got to take people that have been arrested and process them. So it's a I don't know, I don't have the answer, but I think if we need to look at it as how do you facilitate a process? Basically, by the way, you scale it up. It's what you usually do in these situations, and that may be a funding situation for the Board of Supervisors, but you scale it up so you can process people faster into the jail system, so they're not sitting around the IRC. Anyway, that's sort of my take on it, but I guess I would ask, I'm not sure who we have here. Do we have the assistant sheriff in charge of custody here? I would put the question to him or her, and convert my question from a statement to a question. Thanks, Sean.
Let's hear from
for allowing me the opportunity to address the commission this morning. My name is Sergio Aloma. I'm the Assistant Sheriff over Custody Operations. I just want to, Mr. Huntsman, thank you for the promotion to Undersheriff, but I think Undersheriff Tardy might take exception to that. So just want to make it clear that I am the Assistant Sheriff, not the Undersheriff. But again, thank you nevertheless. So to address the tethering issue that was recently brought to our attention, I think it's deeper than that. And some of these issues have already been discussed, and whether it's a capacity issue, whether it's a mental health issue. In our current system, we have a number of county partners that are working collaboratively on this issue, from the CEO's office, county council, the Department of Public Health, Correctional Health Services. We're not operating in a silo here. So when we talk about tethering, there's a bigger issue that we are dealing with as a county and not just as a department. And certainly we appreciate the fact that we are working in partnership with our other county departments, as I mentioned, as well as JCOD, ATI, ODR, to address issues regarding overcrowding and our ability and capacity and the sheriff's limited authority to release individuals from custody that are, in some cases, Mr. Bonner mentioned, are remanded to our custody. As you know, County Council was in the Federal District Court this Monday for a status update on the DOJ settlement agreement. They're going back tomorrow with a number of timelines and recommendations to implement their plan for compliance with the DOJ settlement agreement, which all ties into the issue of confinement, the mentally ill that are in our custody. I've mentioned a number of times that that's an issue that we all collectively need to address, because just over the last 10 years in our county jails, we have seen the mental health population increase from 17% 10 years ago to about 40% today. So that creates a strain on the physical plant of the facilities, as well as our staff's ability, not just sheriff staff, but correctional health service staff, to effectively treat those individuals. Now, specifically to the tethering issue, I don't disagree with a single thing that Mr. Huntsman said. He is spot on his assessment and characterization of what they saw at Men's Central Jail within the last couple of days. In fact, I was at the facility, at all the facilities this past Saturday, and saw it for myself. I immediately addressed it with our line staff, our supervisors. I let them know that it was unacceptable, even though I understood that, again, this is a problem that was created not just at Central Jail, but the IRC that we've spoken about, the domino effect that it causes, the TRO that is in place at IRC that causes staff, both with Correctional Health Services and the Sheriff's Department, to move individuals out of the IRC within 24 hours. 4 hours, they're not allowed on the front bench, what's referred to as the front bench, for more than 4 hours, and move them to appropriate housing. I believe, based on my initial inquiry into this issue, the tethering issue, is that staff at CJ, I preliminarily at least believe that they misinterpreted policy. Mr. Huntsman's right. Policy on fixed restraints is very clear. They have to be 15-minute checks. They have to be offered the ability to go to the bathroom, offered food, water, those sort of things. And it doesn't appear that that was happening. I met with command staff Monday morning, both the division chief and the captains at the facility, to let them know that that practice is unacceptable and it can't continue. I actually met with the assistant OIG Monday afternoon and let her know what I saw over the weekend and that we were working on the issue. Then the following day, I believe it was Tuesday, during a tour with COC, SD1, and others, the problem was still in place. So I've spoken to command staff there, as I said, the division chief as early as this morning again, as well as command staff at Twin Towers and IRC, because it's going to take a collective effort to address that issue. It's not happening as we sit here today. They have found appropriate temporary housing for those individuals, so they're not tethered to a gurney. And to be clear, the tether device is a medical device that is attached to the wrist and to the gurney. It's not a shackle or a metal restraint. So I don't know if that answers your questions, or if there are any additional questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yes, there is additional questions.
Whenever one says that, you know that there's going to be an additional question.
Sure.
First of all, I'm really impressed with the seriousness and the diligence that you and the department are moving in this direction. But I come back to, this is not the first time that we've heard about this. I mean, obviously that was a different administration, but what is the timetable to ultimately, if you know, come up with a plan that is, you know, with all the county partners to end this, so that we're not talking about this again, and you and the department can move forward with plans to reduce the population and at least have a bit more of a humane environment?
I think it's a multifaceted approach. I mentioned the DOJ compliance settlement agreement. Actually, I was alerted about 2:45 this morning by county counsel, who is actually, they're working around the clock on a plan that they're going to present to the federal court tomorrow. I didn't have a chance to thoroughly review that document, but I've read some of it. It has a plan that they want to present to the DOJ and to the federal court. And then that's going to take time for both sides to determine what that plan is and how long it will take to implement. However, I think in the short term, some of the things that we're doing, as Mr. Huntsman mentioned and alluded to earlier, was our release practices that we can implement, that we have the legal authority to do. Our releases of county sentence inmates is currently at 10%. We do what's referred to as shorts, which is, it's gone from zero days to 180 and is now at 240 days. Those individuals can be released with that amount of time left on their sentence. We continue to work with, for example, CDCR. We have a number of state prison inmates that are in our county jail awaiting transfer. That number on any given day could be as many as 1,000. But they're in various stages of process. We have to wait until their paperwork is completed before we can transfer them out. So on any given day, that number is anywhere from 400 to 500 individuals that are ready to leave county jail to state prison. We have a good working relationship with CDCR, and they take about 150 to 200 inmates, but even that. The state hospitals where the transfers are also occurring. Of East facility. East facility had a capacity of 928 beds prior to the renovation project. We anticipate that should be done in about a year or so, perhaps less. It depends on a number of factors, but we believe that once East facility is renovated, it will be able to hold at least 400 medium observation housing individuals, which should help us decompress housing in the basin. But then there's other factors as well. For example, as we started to work through this issue of the tethering, I started to ask the other facilities about maintenance on the existing facilities. And for example, on any given day, we might have up to from 30 to 50 cells inside Twin Towers, for example, that are inoperable due to plumbing or other issues. And to me, those are kind of low level, easy, or should be easy fixes if we have people that are diligent about, for example, fixing a broken toilet and having that cell operable so it could be occupied. And again, that could be anywhere from 30 to 50 cells on any one given day, which is also adding to this issue. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you for sharing the measurable, I would call them measurable areas of what you have observed and instructed staff to adhere to policy, is what I'm hearing. For the last couple of months, I've been joining our partners over at the Civil Brand Commission, SBC, and yesterday I was in their meeting, and Commissioner Vice Chair Sherman sharing about a recent jail visit and inspection, and their commissioner was observing a jail transfer, and the area that they brought up was centered on the question was that they were instructed to turn away and not observe what was going on. And then they were, I guess, hurriedly rushed out of that area where this transfer of a mentally ill inmate was taking place. So I guess my question
is that like, is that a common practice to, you know, instruct the commissioner, basically, you know, that's doing facility site inspections, to turn and not look at what was going on?
Excuse me. I'm not familiar with that specific situation. I'd be happy to speak with you offline so I can get some additional details. It could be something as simple as privacy, if they had to undress the individual, for example. I'm not saying that that was the case, but that could be an explanation. But typically or generally, no, we wouldn't ask any of you to turn away if what we're doing, again, doesn't present privacy issues or that sort of thing.
Well, sounds like the beginning of a much longer conversation that we'll have to keep talking about. Assistant Sheriff Loma, I appreciate you answering some of the questions. I think this shows the importance of the new Office of Constitutional Policing. I have not researched the Eighth Amendment issues in this context, but it is hard for me to believe that tethering mentally ill people struggling with mental illness to a fixed object or journey for long periods of time is not a cruel and unusual punishment. So I hope we really look into this, because this is quite a situation. It's actually heartbreaking. People with mental illness struggle. You know, they're so confused already. They're scared by situations, and I can't imagine what's going through the mind of a person in that situation, tethered to a gurney. And so, Maxwell, I'm glad it's not intended to be punitive. The practical result, the end result, sounds very punitive.
I think the discussion this morning, Sheriff and Undersheriff, Assistant Sheriff, I'm sorry, we'll get that straight eventually. Why it is so essential that the department is fully represented at these hearings, because otherwise, in the past, an issue would come up, and the best that we could do, because there was no sheriff presence at our meetings, would be to send a letter. Of course, that's not a way to have a discussion and a collaboration about trying to move forward and fix an important issue. So thank you again for being here.
And we hear you loud and clear. And thank you, Sergio, for getting up here. And he said something that hopefully, caught my attention, is that when he says, I know he puts in a lot of hours, he's a professional. And what can challenge us, that we can do a better job, that's what we're here for. But the fact that he makes surprise visits to staff in these locations on a Saturday says a lot about his willingness to make sure we're doing the right thing. So thank you for that and your comments. But I think I made this statement, but I just want to put it on the record again, that we will never hide from our responsibilities, that we have an obligation to treat our inmates in the most humane fashion as possible. That's just basic human dignity. But from a county perspective, we need upgraded facilities. In a perfect world, I wish we didn't need custody facilities at all, but we don't live in that world. And we're intaking people in custody from all over the county, and in some cases from the state. And we can provide you numbers in the future, but our facilities currently don't provide the level of care that they should, specifically from a mental health care perspective. And, you know, in a perfect world, again, if apart from not having custody facilities, but if we can have facilities, because we all understand and know that the mental health care system in this state is completely broken. We are I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Sergio, the largest mental health facility in the county, with 40% of our population being mentally ill. We don't have adequate facilities. We need better health and mental health care. We need facilities that are conducive to where staff can make sure that our mental health care clients are getting the recreation, for example, they need, the care that they need, rehabilitation, reentry, reintegration services, educational and recreational services. That's what this county should look at as a beacon of where we need to go. I know, you all look at me with that look, like, how are we gonna get there? But a lot of smart people around here, not only in this room, but we all need to work together as a county family to eventually get there so we can become the model in the United States, not kind of like the group that everybody looks at as the bad example. I want to be the great example. We need everybody's help together.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to address the commission this morning. Again, I look forward to continuing the conversation and coming up with solutions to some of our very important issues.
Can we follow up with you about the numbers that you shared with us?
Absolutely, anytime.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to-
Patty.
I would, yeah, thank you, Sheriff, thank you, Inspector General, thank you, Assistant Sheriff. This is the first time in a long time I've been looking at this in this way of some of the complexity. I mean, in the past, it's been approached with, in my view, that there's this intentionality to abuse people within the facilities. And it's understandable because it's horrible and it's horrific to see what's going on, obviously. But I think the needle has moved and we're really getting down to the brass tacks of the transformation that has to happen. And it's really complex. And complexity probably is one of the most annoying things that can come upon us, because there's so many facets to solve. And in our county, so many different departments. And in the meantime, people are suffering. And there are, from my experience, being restrained when you are having a mental episode, mentally ill, and you're having an episode, and you are restrained for any length of time. I mean, yes, temporarily necessary for safety, but for any length of time only exacerbates what the person is going through, and then will make the whole situation worse, harder for even staff and mental health practitioners to deal with. So I'm just so glad that we're hearing some of the detail. And yes, and I believe that by collaborating and getting more people to the table, we'll continue to drill down on what's really happening and what can work and what are some of the experiments. Might have to think outside the box in a way to what's good, because this all of this has been pretty persistent. But 40%, if that's what the folks, the employees who work in the jail have to deal with, 40% of people with mental illness, that's extraordinary. That's unprecedented. And I know it's been this way for a while and it's been growing over the last 10 years. So this is a social problem. It's a human problem, and it's everybody's problem, in my view. And I look forward to our commission working very closely with all the entities on keeping this as not just the tethering, but the bigger, deeper problem of what goes on in custody.
Okay, I have to move along on this agenda. So I think there's so much to discuss here. I really appreciate talking with us about that. I'm going to move to agenda item number 3, which is the budget. We hear often about the LA County Sheriff's budget, which I think is something like 3.7 or 3.8 billion per year. But we're going to hear a more, comprehensive discussion today. So can I turn this over to you to frame the issue and introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Chair Kennedy. LASD is the largest sheriff department in the world with nearly 18,000 employees and a $3.8 billion budget. The department provides public safety services for more than 10 million residents throughout the county of Los Angeles. As taxpayers, we expect county departments to carefully review their operational needs, to be frugal, and to ensure the best services and products with expended funds. The fiscal year of 2023 to 24, LASD has continued its practice of submitting its budget priorities and unmet needs to the Commission for review and analysis. Our Budget Committee has heard from several subject matter experts and reviewed numerous budget documents. There is always room for greater transparency and accountability with respect to where public funds coming from and where they are expended. Our Commission staff member, Tracy Jordan, will speak more about this issue. I will turn it over to Tracy.
Thank you, Commissioner Cooper. Every year around this time, the Commission Budget Ad Hoc Committee begins the process of conducting review and analysis of the LASD fiscal year budget priorities and unmet needs documents, which for fiscal year 2023-24, as referenced in our staff report attached to the agenda, consists of 12 priorities and 9 unmet needs. Some of the LASD priorities are technology related and others are directly related to public safety services, such as mental evaluation teams and homeless outreach services teams expansion. The computer-aided dispatch CAD system replacement project has shown up on the LASD budget request for the second year in a row and is urgently needed as the 80s system software is antiquated and will leave the agency with archaic options if the system goes down. Today, we have with us subject matter experts from LASD available to speak before the Commission about this issue. Before we hear from LASD, let's look at the CEO flow chart for the budget process. As we look at the flow chart, at the first row on the last box, you will see that the first two boxes, or the first box, excuse me, in the first row and the first two boxes in the middle row will tell you about the county's process of analyzing the budget and where we are currently. The department is in the process of having briefings with county departments about their presentations and the recommended budget prior to going into the April timeframe. At this time, we will hear from the Sheriff's Department Assistant Sheriff, Chief Financial Officer, Jill Torres.
Good morning. I want to make sure that you can hear me.
But Jill, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Here for a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, is
Jill, I can hear you, but I'm not sure about the rest.
multi-billion-dollar budget in the sheriff's department.
Stand
which we
by.
hadn't had
The
in
sheriff
last
is
several
speaking now.
years. Jill had worked here in the sheriff's department before. She is well known within the offices of the Board of Supervisors and the CEO. So as she's coming in, looking at what we've done in the past, she is professionalizing what we're doing. And I want to be as transparent as I possibly can. But if you've heard me from day one or even before when I was campaigning for this job, one of the primary tenets that I ran on was collaboration. And her focus is to make sure that we are collaborating with the CEO's office and the Board of Supervisors. So as we're moving forward through this process, we are doing it together. That hasn't been done recently. So please be patient with us as Jill will try and explain what we're doing in the process. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that, and I'm happy to reintroduce Jill Torres. Very happy that she's on our team, and you'll see from when she speaks, she really knows what she's doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff, and thank you for the opportunity to address the commission, to give you a brief overview of our priorities, and I think more important, to provide you with some information as to the state of the organization and why our priorities are in the order that they are. So next slide, please. So as Tracy just said, we are in the middle of the budget process. Our meeting with the Chief Executive Officer is next week to discuss our budget priorities. The Chief Executive Officer will present the budget to the board in the April timeframe. Final changes will take place in the budget process in the June timeframe, and then supplemental budget takes place in late September and early October. And we do have the ability to move and replace items throughout that process. Next slide, please. I wanted to provide an overview again of some of the issues that we're facing. One of the most significant one is the number of vacant positions that we have. Currently, as of January 22nd, we have 1,122 sworn vacancies, as well as 1,070 civilian vacancies. Next slide, please. In addition to those vacant positions, we have impairments, which is people that are not able to come to work for a variety of issues, 4850 injured on duty, medical leaves of absences, relieved from duty, or other serious health conditions. We have an additional 875 sworn impairments and an additional 1,078 civilian impairments. Next slide, please. So to talk briefly about some of the budget challenges that we have, in addition to the vacancies and the impairments, we have employee benefit costs and workers' compensation costs that are increasing. The impairments are obviously driving those. Excuse me. We do have some historical structural deficits within the budget where we have expenditures that exceed our budget, and that's a long-standing issue in the Sheriff's Department, and we are working diligently with the County Executive's Office to discuss and see how we can resolve that. I covered the number of vacancies and impairments. We do have mandated service levels in our contract cities, in our courts, in our unincorporated patrols, and in our countywide services. Many of the contract mandates have a 98% mandated service delivery, And that becomes increasingly difficult when we have a vacancy factor of approximately 25%. Because of that, we have fairly high levels of mandatory overtime throughout the department. Some of our patrol stations are running at about 25% mandatory overtime. Obviously, we have concerns of the health of our employees, as well as making sure that that they get enough sleep while they're out there. And when we get into the cycle of mandatory overtime, any additional duties that we take on, we would have to provide on an overtime basis. And so it gets into a vicious circle. The more overtime we have, the more impairments we have, the more people go out on stress leave. And so that's one of our concerns, obviously, in the organization. Consent decree compliance, certainly that's been discussed with the increasing population. That is also a significant challenge that the agency faces. We have extremely dated equipment and technology. We really, as an organization, and one of the sheriff's priorities is to look at how can we use technology as a force multiplier? How can we use technology to better document the services that we're providing? And so that's something that we really are focusing on. Obviously, as you're aware, we have legal settlements, legal challenges, and we have ongoing settlement agreements. And you're also aware we have fractured relationships that we're in the process of rebuilding. Next slide, please. So with that background information and in recognition of the challenges we face, our 12 budget priorities start with the custody consent decree compliance. Previously, we have asked for positions for that. In this budget year, we are merely asking for an increase in the overtime, in our overtime budget. Those services currently are being provided on an overtime basis, although that is not ideal. We are not budgeted for it. And so we are looking to work with the county executive's office to correct that. The second budget priority is the Office of Constitutional Policing. You're aware that the sheriff announced Ms. Decker joining, and that is our next budget priority. Our third really focuses on academy classes. We have to increase the number of funded academy classes we have. Filling our vacancies really has to be a priority in order to provide some relief from our staff. Next, we get into equipment for our countywide operations, both tasers, which are outdated. The ones that we currently have are outdated and out of warranty, as well as continuing to implement body-worn cameras in areas of the department, station jails, detectives, and special operations that don't have them right now. Moving down the list, number 5, there's a number of requests that involve technology, particularly in custody. And we are going to partner, it's our intent to partner with the Chief Information Officer for the county and ask that that office come in and do a full technology assessment. This is particularly important in the jails where the systems are old and outdated, and a number of our budget requests were asking for increases in network capacity. Rather than take a piecemeal approach, we'd like to do a comprehensive assessment, understand what we need to do in order to bring the technology in custody up to date so that there can be tasers, there can be body-worn cameras, there can be a jail information management system, and any of the other technology priorities that we have moving forward. We'd like to do that once and have something put in place that will provide us a network capability to assist with all the all the technology needs moving forward for the next number of years, rather than take a piecemeal approach. The custody equipment, again, the body worn cameras and tasers, we really need to review technology in order to do those. So that will follow and is very much linked to number 5. The computer aided dispatch replacement project is another high priority list. We are working with the county's information office on some funding for that. The mobile digital replacements, those are radios that are necessary for the upgrade of the countywide LA-RICS radio system. As I mentioned, we have some ongoing structural deficits in our employee benefits in the budget. We've presented a multi-year plan, a multi-year request to the county executive's office to rectify that. Station custody assistance, this has historically been an issue in the department dating back till when I was here previously in 2017-18. Again, we're hoping to increase the number of custody assistants in the station jails, and this would be a multi-year request. Number 11 and number 12, unfortunately, just because of our staffing needs and our vacancies, while expansion of the homeless outreach team and certainly expansion of the mental evaluation team are very high priorities for the department, right now we're limiting our ability to expand because of our staffing and vacancy needs. The sheriff has been very clear that we cannot increase the amount of overtime that employees are currently working. And so we are trying to identify other ways that we can expand those programs, and we'll continue to work on looking at if we can do that without adding staff. Next slide. And that is the end of my formal presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission has.
Thank you very much for that, that overview. What do you consider under the category of fractured relationships? What does that relate to? And what percentage of the budget is used for settlement and lawsuit payouts?
The fractured relationships that I was referring to is with the CEO's office and the board regarding the budget. I believe that will improve immediately. I have longstanding relationships with the CEO's office and the people in the CEO's office that do the budget. But there have been historically some concerns about how allocating funding to the department and how it's being used. We have to prove that that is no longer going to be an issue. So that's what I meant by fractured relationships. I do not have right with me the percentage of the budget that is dedicated to settlements, and I would be happy to get that back to you. I know that there is a budgeted amount that is often exceeded, and that depends on how many settlements take place during the year. Once a settlement is approved by the board, that is billed directly to the department's budget, and it may be a case that had started several years ago, often 4 to 5 years ago, but I'd be happy to provide you with the budgeted amount for that, as well as several years of actuals if that's the information that you would like.
That would be helpful.
Sheriff Luna, Assistant Sheriff Torres, I know you have to make the hard calls, but I just want to respectfully disagree about that. Patty, how many years has it been since this commission, where it's ad hoc studied and recommended 80 or 60 med teams, which we were really conservative. Should have been so many more. And every single year, we hear there is some other priority and mental evaluation teams. And every year we hear of family members, watch them on the news or they come here during the family impact remarks, talking about how they called the sheriffs for help with someone who was in the throes of severe crisis due to mental illness, psychosis, or people who suffer from autism. And when they call the sheriffs, the deputies, the patrol deputies respond and they shoot and kill the person who is in a health crisis. And we hear about judgments because the Met team couldn't get there, or the deputies didn't call the Met team, even though it's clear that there's a mental health issue. And we would hear that they're not able to get there, that the demand exceeds the supply. Yet it's so hard to how Met remains far below the recommended. Frankly, I think this commission should look at that issue anew, because I now regret our low number and we're still not anywhere near there.
Yeah, you described it pretty well. I mean, one of the things that we have come to understand is that when the Met team is on the scene and when the LAPD SMART team is on the scene, nobody dies. Nobody dies. And we're in an era right now where we're looking at other means of community safety, which is very valid. Very valid. We're experimenting. But I think in our view at the commission, it wasn't a let's stop Met and just have community safety programs, but it's a both and for us. I believe it's a both and yeah, it's been a struggle. It's been a struggle, but Met and both Met and SMART, the combination of specially trained law enforcement people and specially trained social workers working together. And I just saw firsthand another example of it working successfully last week. So, I don't know. I know the idea of not putting money into more law enforcement presence at mental health interventions seems to have gained some popularity, but I'm not sure that eliminating it and not continuing to increase it and develop it is wise.
Like you have something to say, welcome your remarks.
They say God gave us 2 years and 1 mouth, and I'm listening loud and clear and taking notes. Thank you for acknowledging the work that our mental evaluation teams do. They're wonderful and they do amazing work. I can't think of an incident that they've been on where it results in a fatality, which is unfortunate. Sometimes that does happen with us. Here's the challenge that we face. I will go back and look at the original reports and your recommendations because I want to read that. Assistant Sheriff Serrano mentioned the fact that when we're looking at a budget item for today, and if, say, hypothetically, we wanted to double the size of our Met team, That means that somewhere in the organization, we have to take that number of personnel to put them in a Met team, which leaves a broader hole. And right now, one of the top issues that I'm dealing with is I'm talking to our employees of the sheriff's department is that they're averaging between 8 to 12, what they call drafts a month, meaning it's mandatory overtime. That is a borderline crisis for our department. That means that I have to look at, from a mental wellness perspective, what, if you're working 40 hours a week and on top of that, you're having to mandate people to come in and work overtime, what does that do to your family life? What does that do to your fatigue level? And I think we all know that if we put tired people either in a custody setting and or a patrol setting, that could create some challenges. So there's not a simple answer in getting there. You saw that our staffing shortages on the sworn side were nearly 1,000. That is creating a significant impact. What we're saying is not right now, but what we're open to is definitely acknowledging the fact that this is a critical program moving forward and we have to assess it. But please know that as I have been traversing this county, whether in campaign mode or now as your sheriff, it has been very crystal clear to me that the majority of the residents in this county are looking for alternative responses to just law enforcement itself. We are in desperate need of mental health care response. Right now, I could tell you that I'll argue that no one does it as good as whether it's the LAPD teams, the teams I came from in Long Beach, now the sheriff's teams. We do magnificent work in that area, but we need other services out there who can respond to people in mental health crises, and it should not always be law enforcement. I'll end this by saying this, that as much as I would like to say I'd like to add 200 more Met officers, I don't believe in our budget system looking towards the future that is sustainable. We have to look at other methods to deal with the lack of mental health services, not only in our county, but in our state. Sorry to sound like I'm preaching, but very passionate about this issue. And there's no easy answers out there, although I absolutely respect that you want us to have more Met units, because honestly, so would I.
Well, I respect that. I feel very passionate about this too, because I've been on this commission for 6 years. And having heard the families who have called 911 for help, and they witness their loved one in a crisis shot and killed, I just cannot understand how every single year there's a reason that can't be the priority. And I agree with Patty Giggins 100%. All of those alternative non-law enforcement responses of mental health professionals, we support 100%. But the reality is, when the ordinary patrol car comes, it seems like they shoot people. And that doesn't happen with Met. And I cannot understand why we continue to say that we don't have the resources to fully staff Met, when in the end it's a win-win, because those people are not shot and killed, those lawsuits don't occur. But more importantly, Sheriff, it's also a value statement. A statement of values. Like, I never hear anyone come here and say that we can't fund the gang suppression units or other specialized units. But they always say that we can't fund Met. But the idea that we have specially trained deputies with clinicians going out into the community trying to prevent shootings of people who are struggling with mental illness and are in a crisis is such a fundamental part of 21st century policing that it's discouraging. This is your first time with us on this issue, so I completely understand. But it's not our first time. over and over again, the department comes here and says there's a good reason it can't meet our recommendations from years before the fully staffed med. It's unfortunate because the people who really suffer are all those people who called for help and then lost their loved one. And when they are here, they talk about the guilt and shame that they suffer because they called for help because they didn't know what to do with someone in a mental crisis. And then they watched the deputies shoot and kill their loved one. And it just is devastating to hear that narrative over again from the families. It's heartbreaking.
Listen. Yeah, we'll look at it again. I do want to mention something else for the record in regards to Met. And again, I'm not arguing any point that you made because I think I agree with everything you said. But just for the record, I also want to make sure that people understand, and this is a challenge I faced in my previous job, and I know I will be facing it moving forward. If somebody calls on a Sunday night at 2 a.m. and for a Met unit, it is very challenging to get one. You know why that is? There are no services. A Met unit is only as good as the services that they can attach themselves to for services to connect the client to. Those services don't exist at certain hours or days of the week. As a matter of fact, if we talk to the Department of Mental Health, we need to ask them their availability for clinicians on weekends, holidays, and off hours. Because in our line of work in policing, we constantly can put somebody working on Christmas night because it's shift work. Try and do that for somebody in the mental health field. I'm just telling you, I'm listening. This is part of governance, throwing it out there, trying to figure out a better way because we need to find a better way. But it's a systems, just like we talked about the custody facilities, that it's not just the sheriff's department that is part of the solution. It's the entire ecosystem dealing with mental health, and it doesn't always work the way we want it to. So I hope it doesn't sound argumentative to anybody. I'm just telling you it's a reality that we deal with, but at the end of the day, I'm listening. I want to get there with you.
I appreciate it. I mean, argumentative is good because that's where real conversations happen. So I respect the difficulty on the clinician side. I mean, I've said what.
Yes, sir.
Patty's our chair.
Again, adding to the complexity and what you just said is absolutely true. We have to fund social workers as well as funding, the officers. But I just want to bring in that try to get a bed at a psych unit. Try to get a bed. The wait now, I mean, you have tens of people waiting for beds when you have an emergency to get into the psych units. So that's the other aspect of it.
And just so the public understands, the way a Met unit works, mental evaluation team, it would be a deputy partnered with a mental health clinician. It's a team of two that makes them so effective. So even if I get the deputy for the mental evaluation team, I have to depend on the Department of Mental Health to give me a clinician. And their partners, they do great, but you can look at, and it's well documented, their challenges in finding people to fill those positions across the board. So if anyone out there wants to be a clinician, please come forward because we need the help.
This is a trend. You see who are both already.
Ms. Torres, thank you for your very comprehensive, but I had a few questions, especially because of the large amount of vacancies. Is there anything in the budget for recruitment underneath that hiring, or is that a separate?
Yes, there is. In the request for academy classes, there is also money for, a request for money for recruitment. We are also looking at bringing in a marketing team that previously assisted the department in the 2017, 2018 timeframe when there was a similar level of vacancies. They were the marketing team that came up with the brand One Badge Unlimited Possibilities, which seems to have worked very effectively. And so we are in the process of bringing them back on, as well as looking at all of our recruitment strategies to make sure that they are the most effective. During the 2017-2018 timeframe, we actually had an outside consultant come in and give us some recommendations on how to improve and increase our recruitment. And so we're digging up the old documents and referring to that information so as not to reinvent the wheel. The second component is retention. And so we will be meeting with the county's Department of Human Resources next week to discuss any retention strategies, because not only do we have to get people in the door, but we don't want people leaving as well. And the concern with the mandatory overtime and the level of work, and as the sheriff spoke about the impact that that can have on family life, we are losing people to go to other agencies, often small agencies. Many agencies have recruiting bonuses right now. That's not something that we currently offer. And so we'll be collaborating with County DHR on what best practices are throughout the county, as well as trying to see if we can develop some strategies that are specifically targeted towards our employees.
Thank you, because it's important. Blood. So I hope you continue to recruit at the high school level and at the college level, and then go to the community like some of the churches, because it's important to me that we continue to rebuild those relationships, and we have to step into the community and have the kids see that policemen, they don't have to be afraid of them, that they have a reason to be there for their safety, and to build that trust and make them want to be policemen. I think that's very important to me. The second question I had was about the tasers. I do understand we need new equipment and equipment that works effectively, but I have a concern to make sure that our officers are educated in the use, because I heard on television that certain people have died with overuse of the taser. So I just want to make sure, you know, we have to protect the public, and I'm all for that. But I want to make sure that people know how to safely use the equipment. So I hope that's part of training is in that, in terms of buying the equipment to make sure people are trained on it. Thank you.
Quick regarding the taser training. We just had a presentation earlier this week from one of the companies that we get the equipment from, Axon. And we're looking at it. I know we're going to discuss this later on today as it relates to deputy-involved shootings. So I'm making sure that all of our people are looking at the best equipment possible. Our department is as part of the analysis coming in dire need of some equipment, and the assistant sheriff laid it out in her presentation. But taser use is very important. I will assure all of you that we will be working with the inspector general on policies to make sure that we have the best policy in place, the best training to support that policy, and then holding people accountable. And even as we're talking to Axon, as one of the considerations, we will be looking at ways of implementing some type of technology that assists, that maybe, for example, that limits its use to so many applications. And I know there's been a lot of questions about recent usage with our neighbors here at LAPD. We're paying close attention. I've had Mike Moore is a very good friend of mine, and we've had a lot of discussions about challenges in that regard. And we're both wanting to do the same thing for both of our departments and the people we represent. So thank you.
Yeah. I just wanted to raise a question about the civilian and sworn officer categories, and whether there may be instances where there are job positions or even units that could more take advantage of civilian availability for applicants or for talent available for them. In areas like the CFO's category, or like the data gathering and analysis, or such as communications. Are there areas within the sheriff's huge department where there could be greater use, or perhaps less strict reliance on sworn officers to fulfill certain categories of work?
Yes. With a exclamation point. And that's the advantage of having somebody from the outside come in, look at the operations as we all are. And I say an outsider, and it's all respect to everyone sitting in front of you, because they work with the sheriff's department, and some of the better ideas I've received thus far from them. And there are definitely opportunities to do exactly what you're talking about. And as we move forward, you will be seeing more of those.
We'll take any remaining commissioner questions and have public comments on this topic.
Agenda item number 2.
Great meeting, Sharon. One of the best meetings we have. Okay, we're gonna read this meeting. We had taken commissioner comments. And now on the budget, and we're gonna take a public comment, but Tracy, you wanted to tell us one more thing before we take public comment.
Attached to the meeting's agenda, there are two recommendations for which the commission is pending a response from the LASD. In summary, our recommendations include that one, the LASD should develop an annual budget mitigation plan and/or a budget status report and submit it to the CEO, the board, and the commission and publish them on the LASD public website by no later than the third week of September of each year, effective 2023. The second recommendation is that the CEO and the board approve select LASD fiscal year 23-24 budget priorities and unmet needs consistent with various county strategic plan goals, including but not limited to the following: additional academy classes and recruitment funding consistent with LASD priority number 3, computer-aided dispatch CAD system replacement project consistent with LASD priority number 7, mental evaluation teams MET consistent with LASD priority number 12, Senate Bill 2 SB 2 unit staffing consistent with LASD unmet needs unmet needs number 2, and Psychological Services Bureau LASD unlisted unmet need presented by their subject matter expert, Dr. Sital. On a separate note, on March 2nd, 2023, the Los Angeles County Sheriff Civilian Oversight Commission will be hosting a 90-minute virtual conference titled Money, Understanding LA County's Public Safety Budget Priorities. The conference will bring together county leaders with law enforcement professionals, academics, county partners, and members of the public to discuss the flow of the budget process, public safety budget priorities, and opportunities for community feedback. If you are registered with us to receive county email distributions, you should receive a flyer with a link to register for this event. If not, please feel free to go to our website at coc.lacounty.gov to get more information. We would like to thank the commission and the public for your time related to this important issue. At this time, we will submit and turn this item back over to the commission for further discussion and for public comment.
Let's take public comment.
Our first public comment comes from Vanessa Perez.
I have these
Or everybody? Here, I can.
It's,
If everybody could look at the pictures, please. I'm sharing on behalf of Joseph Andrew Perez, who your Los Angeles County Sheriffs used extreme force. Joseph was resuscitated, meaning he was brought back to life on July 27, 2020, and the victim of jail violence for 2 years after he was beat up. The early morning of July 27, 2020, your sheriff punched strike Joseph 121 times. Deputy Sean Merrick, the so-called initial deputy that punched my son, then slamming him to the ground. Deputy Sebastian Palmbaugh said, I punched the suspect on his face approximately 10 times, then continued to punch his face with both my fists approximately 10 more times, a total of 20 punches. Deputy Abraham Rivera said he punched Joseph 3 to 5 times to his face, then felt exhausted and had trouble breathing, but managed to punch 8 to 10 more times to Joseph's upper torso and head area. Then Deputy Rivera said, my punches to his upper body area were not having the desired effect, and I believe I needed to switch my use of force. Deputy Rivera continues to do 10 more head strikes, a total of 25 punches from Abraham Rivera. V. Rodriguez said, I punched his face and upper torso area approximately 10 times, then struck approximately 7 more times to Joseph's face with the sides of my fist. Punched Joseph's torso 5 times with both fists, then became dizzy and exhausted. A total of 22 more punches from V. Rodriguez. Deputy Jake Adamo said he struck Joseph with both fists. He continued to say, I used my personal weapons hitting Joseph with both my left and right fist, approximately 10 times to his abdomen and groin, then began striking his face and head approximately 10 more times. A total of 20 punches. Might be 40 considering he states he used both his fists from Jake Adamo. So that's a total of 40. And then there's Deputy Paul Sedana, who is currently a school resource officer at my daughter's high school, Nogales High School, working with high school students, not to mention my daughter. Paul Sedana, the last deputy at the scene, punched Joseph 14 times to his head and upper torso. Paul Sedana said he deemed his punches took effect because Joseph stopped fighting back. Or did he mean Joseph stopped moving? I don't know if everyone is keeping up, but according to each of these police reports, and these are the direct words from your Los Angeles County Sheriff deputies, your deputies have admitted to punching and striking Joseph 121 times. 121 punches, strikes to Joseph, who weighed 110 pounds. Can you imagine this and then be restrained in a hospital bed? I have seen grown men get knocked out with one punch. Joseph, your deputies did 99 punches too many to my son. It took approximately 121 punches from your deputies that are professionally trained to apprehend individuals. What gets me is everyone is okay with this, because if we weren't, we wouldn't be here now. After being resuscitated, he was put in the county jail for 2 years, while the court and the sheriffs had their fun with the jail violence, medical neglect, like if his life didn't matter. Everyone in the courts that directly worked with Joseph's case is guilty as the sheriffs. Their actions didn't go unnoticed. Joseph would have problems being housed with violent sallies and fights with inmates right before court. Therefore, he would be a no-show for court. And then there's Deputy Turnbull. He works in the jails. Had violent encounters with Joseph before court, where the public defender would tell me how scared Joseph was and to get him out of the MOA or the HOA floor. My son's injuries after surviving what was intended to kill him, after the reported 121 punches from the sheriffs, is lifelong. My son suffers from seizures. Now they put 17 staples to his scalp with no anesthesia at the hospital. I can't stress that enough. 17 staples to multiple large lacerations to his scalp, 19 stitches to his face and his ears, 3 staples to his leg, plus skin adhesive to parts of his scalp that look like big holes. If by the pictures you can see the holes in his head. Like I said, Joseph suffers from seizures now, and the PSTD is overwhelming. And this is just some of his injuries. I mean, is this normal? I mean, if they don't die, is this normal for all you guys? Is this why no one is really talking about it? And then let's not forget Paul Sodano, who is now the school resource officer at my daughter's school, where my daughter attends every day at school. And then I would like to say, I imagine if these were your children, what would you guys do? And if you could please reach out to me, Sheriff Luna.
So sorry. I went through this. Can I ask our Inspector General, do you know about this?
I don't know if my office has received a complaint on it or looked into it. I can talk to staff.
I mean, it just sounds like something that should be looked into.
Absolutely. I've taken down the information and we will inquire as to what the incident was that resulted in the force and look into it. But sitting here, I don't know.
Okay, well, there, you have the contact, you've kindly given us your email and your number. It just sounds like a beating that produces seizure disorder sounds like a very serious. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Parra, have you made your concern about Deputy Sedano known to the Hacienda La Puente School District? And has there been any response from them about his presence at your daughter's high school?
The Roland District, I have made contact with them many of times, and they've asked me not to be on the campus anymore with the deputy being there. And then they threatened a restraining order on me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Michelle Infante, followed by Ron Dow, followed by Donald Harlan.
Good morning. First, I'd like to say thank you to Max Huntsman for the work that you do in the reports. They're so important and very much appreciated, not just from our organization, but I know from the families that I work with. So thank you. To you, Sheriff Luna, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I've been doing this for 9 years, coming up here for 9 years, and not seeing someone who seems to be as much interested in community and making a change. So I do appreciate that. I just hope that we get to see that. So I want to talk about you're asking for more money. So when you ask for more money, you say you need it for upgrades, and that makes sense. But what doesn't is that you're asking for more money and you're not changing the behavior of the deputies that you have that are problematic. So you want more money and you're going to upgrade. What are you going to do to make a difference with the people that are working there? I can't imagine that you're going to cherry pick them out. So you're going to do upgrades and you're going to still have the same sociopathic behavior that you have. You talk about new recruitments. What are you going to do to change the behavior of the people that are training those people? Because they're bringing that into the department. So it seems like you're defeating your purpose, and there's a little bit of a conflict of interest in there, especially when you're asking for a constitutional unit. You know, you may not like this statement, but it's very true to the families that have lost a loved one or not lost a loved one who've been murdered by LASD. It's like, we don't want the murderer investigating the murder. So you might have outside help, but you're spending money on this new unit when we have families who are being traumatized by your department. And so your upgrades don't make sense to me, and they don't make sense to a lot of families. So how can you make that change within your department when it's your deputies? It's not necessarily the upgrades. You don't have an answer?
Thank you. We just have other people who need to comment, Michelle.
Okay, well.
Our next speaker, Ron Dow, followed by Donald Harlan.
Good morning. Compton's $24 million contract with LASD has doubled since 2000. The contract does not require disclosing sheriff personnel names, employee numbers, and duties. Yet the contract commands 40% of the general fund at the sacrifice of senior and youth services that have been replaced with turkey, gas, and taco giveaways. Compton does not monitor and report the contract results, which inhibits public safety planning and is a significant source of deputy distrust by the Compton community. Residents do not know if executioner deputies' gangs work in the Compton station, if any Proud Boys, 3%ers, or Oath Keepers work out of Compton station. Compton leaders are ineffective and have mismanaged money as described in the October 2022 State Auditor Report, which criticizes Compton's poor street and well water conditions, general fund deficits, and high personnel turnover. In January, Captain Bell reported on the teams operating within and around Compton Station, Operation Safe Streets, Federal Task Force, Human Trafficking Teams, Special Assignment Teams, County Patrol Diversion Teams, Street Takeover Team, the Mental Health Emergency Team, and one that we don't even know about, the SAO. Who are these people? Where are these people? To whom do they report? How do they operate? What are the results of having them? LA County paid $44 million to settle lawsuits from sheriff killings in and around Compton since 2009. We have identified as many as 57 deputies involved in fatal shootings in Compton. We have solutions for these existential threats if local and county departments will work with us. Our redesign will increase transparency, accountability, and public safety if city officials and others are interested in these outcomes. That concludes my statements.
Thank you.
Our last speaker, Donald Harlan.
Hi, I'm Donald Harlan. I wanted to ask this about agenda item number 3 about the sheriff's budget, or is this general public comment? Which one?
About the budget.
Oh, I was concerned about the sheriff's budget too. I have a lot of cities that I really honestly I need to pay for, and sheriff's in a lot of trouble, and they're way off their tax base, and they're having a hard time bonding. So much corrupt activity. There's a big problem in the government because with the sheriffs because the people are gamifying the political system in order to gain immunity. They figure if you run for a political office, you can become immune and keep pushing up the political ladder to the whatever position you got to. If you got to, that's a big problem. I don't think that politicians should have a right to have immunity for that. And it's a problem with LA County sheriffs because so many evil people, supervillains, and monsters are escaping justice that are in the government. And that that's a big problem with corruption. My problems didn't get handled by the sheriffs. That I have a family member being held hostage, taken by the sheriffs, and that the inspector general was involved in the kidnapping of my daughter out of the Henry Mayo Hospital in a previous life, and that I can't get justice over this. I can't even recover the bodies of my murdered family members since 2009. That somebody sent actors, replacements to replace my family members. They got either ID cards and everything, staying in my family's house and stuff, using their accounts. They're having an emergency still. For 14 years now, I've been in this emergency situation.
Thank you. Final speaker.
So we're going to move on to the next topic, because, the hour is getting late. And this is an important topic. Some would have already addressed some of it, I think, conditions of confinement. And so Irma, I think this is also one I give to you.
Thank you, Chair Kennedy. The core values of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department are to lead with compassion, serve with humility, and tongue-tied.
Okay. We all get tongue-tied.
And courageously seek justice for all. On any given day, more than 13,500 people are under the Sheriff's Department care and custody in the jails. These men and women are human, and they are loved by their family and friends. But while in custody, they may be subjected to inhumane conditions. More than 100 years ago, the Sheriff's Department held its first detention honor camp, and LASD has been providing care and custody of those in jail ever since. After years of providing custody service in the jails, it's appalling that we hear about people being subjected to processing delays and overcrowding in the inmate reception center. Individuals with serious mental illness are being chained to chairs for days. People defecating in trash cans and urinating on the floor. And that number of people are dying in custody. There is a need for transparency of jail conditions and the care for our neighbors in custody. We heard about this issue and reviewed the staff report at the last commission meeting. Our commission staff member, Tracy Jordan, will provide an overview of the issues and recommendations which we hope to be voted on today. I'll turn it over to you, Tracy.
Thank you, Commissioner Cooper. In January, the conditions of confinement item was on the agenda for our commission and was heard by various subject matter experts, and they were questioned related to areas that included but are not limited to overcrowding and inmate reception center processing delays with the OIG reports from April to September referring to IRC significant overcrowding, COVID-19 and mpox in the jails with more than 600 people at risk having been vaccinated for mpox, pregnant people in the jails with 168 being released between January 1st, 2020 and November 7th, 2022, and 33 in custody deaths in LASD jail system from January 1st, 2022 to November 15th, 2022. The report attached to this meeting's agenda consists of 3 recommendations for which the LASD has provided a response. In summary, our recommendations and the LASD response includes the request that LASD collaborate with Correctional Health Services in the development of written quarterly report on LASD's conditions of confinement and publish them on LASD's website. LASD response. The LASD collects such information and it can include the proposed report. Request number 2, LASD publish on LASD website an annual in-custody deaths report in accordance with AB 2761. LASD response. LASD has created the mechanism to track and post AB 2761 information on department's public website and is currently being posted. Request number 3, that LASD publish an annual homicide investigations report on the LASD public website. LASD response. LASD agreed that such report can be prepared. We would like to thank the commission and the public for your time related to this significant issue. At this time, we submit and turn this item back over to Chair Kennedy for consideration of adoption.
Okay, so I think now is the time for discussion. Do any commissioners want to? Patty?
I just want to clarify, did I hear correctly that the sheriff's department has agreed to the 3 requests?
That is correct.
Anyone else? Tracy, do we have to take a vote or anything? Or I think that we all agree this is what we should do as recommended by the report. Okay?
Is it just an adoption?
Yes. All right, so if there are no commissioner comments, like I said, we've discussed this extensively, we can take public comment on any matter.
We have 2 public comments for this item. Can we take them now? We have 1. Oh, we don't have any more, so now we just have regular public comment.
Yes.
Okay. There's regular public comment. Michelle Infante is our first speaker, followed by Isaac Asbury, followed by Donald Harlan.
Someone who was confined at the Century Regional Detention Facility around June the 5th. She went in, Ruby Beltran went in and had 2nd stage liver cancer and never received any treatment at all while she was inside. While she was in there, I had a phone call with her over the phone, and she named the deputies that had sexually assaulted her, allegedly, and also the medical treatment that she was receiving, the treatment that she was receiving from other deputies that were around her. This whole book right here is every complaint that she made, all of her medical treatment and everything. I asked her to put it together so that she had her story, and we had it all in here with the paperwork to back up everything she had to say. Unfortunately, she's not here. She's not been able to, she didn't receive any treatment at all while she was inside. And since she's been out, I let some of your deputies know that she has not been able to receive any kind of medical care because her Medi-Cal says that she's still incarcerated. So I believe she asked for this more than 30 days ago, which was a letter from your department stating that she's no longer incarcerated so she can receive treatment. She's in 4th-stage liver cancer now, and she still doesn't have that letter from your department so that she can go out and receive treatment. So I would hope that your department would do something about that right away, because I'm sure that's not something that you would consider humane treatment, right? Because she didn't receive it on the outside doesn't mean because you pushed her out now, because she didn't receive it on the inside and you pushed her out now doesn't mean that your department's not responsible for her anymore. You are, because you never gave her the treatment to begin with while she was in there. So I just wanted you to know that your department at Century Regional Detention Facility has major problems. You have a deputy in there that has possibly sexually assaulted someone. And then when they complained to me over the phone, when we had a phone call, she went from general population to solitary confinement from around July or August until the time. So I think that
Donald Harlan.
Good morning. Morning. I came here to raise a holy sand, but nobody's here from the other place. Normally, yeah. I want to thank the sheriff for showing up. It's the first time in my 9 years I've seen deputies here. But I also want to thank the Civilian Oversight Commission, the ones who've been on it forever and ever. My friend is Ron Dow, and we were just speaking on the way up here. What a thankless job you guys have, but you guys do a good job. Okay, because if you look at the number of people who were fatally killed and did provide lawsuits, they won their cases. That's only because of the Civilian Oversight. Okay, so you got to keep that in mind. So it's not as thankless as it looks. Okay.
Thank you.
My complaint is about the city of Compton, as Ron Dow was speaking. We had 2 residents, one resident this year, a resident last year was killed and ran over by a sheriff department patrol car, and they never provided us the names. Okay, since this new captain has taken over, we've had, he started about 3 months ago, we've had about 3 shootings, fatal shootings, and they still failed to provide the names of the officers who was involved in the shootings. And that's all we're requesting is for them to work with us. Thank you.
I think that information is required by law under 1421. Must be 1421. So I'm sorry to hear that you're not getting the names. I think you're entitled under law to those names. So I don't know, maybe the Inspector General can.
I can address it generally in that,
That's what I meant. Isn't it not, it's required by law that that information be released.
That's correct. The names of officers must be released absent specific circumstances that involve a threat to them. And the Sheriff's Department website has improved in recent months in terms of what it puts up there with names, but there's a lag in terms of it being put up there. And I know the sheriff and his management have talked a bit about, along with some of the county initiatives, to put more information up there that's correct. Another shortcoming of it is that under the law, in order to not put up the full investigative information for a shooting, there has to be a written explanation for why that's not being done. And that has never been done, in my knowledge, in the county of Los Angeles. So it's an ongoing problem with respect to these particular cases and a general one. And there's a partial solution to when the Sheriff's Department comes in compliance with the law, which I'm hopeful will be part of the process that's going on now that the sheriff is working on, that Ms. Decker is working on, but we're definitely not there yet.
As the Inspector General was speaking, it was very clear that a member of the sheriff's executive team heard what was said, turned around, talked to the speaker, got information, and hopefully will take care of this issue and make sure that this information is provided. Once again, it is crucial that you are all here. So thank you.
Well, I really, I hope that we comply with 1421 because the residents of Compton, I think, are especially concerned about this issue. There are so many allegations about a deputy gang, the executioners, and perhaps other deputy gangs, that it's an area, I think, of great interest. You both are at these meetings religiously, telling us about the struggles in Compton, and I hope that information will be released because people have a right to know more information about these shootings than has been provided, in my opinion. Did we have one more member of the public who wanted to comment?
We do. Donald Harlan?
Hello. Hi, I'm Donald Harlan. This is just general comment about the Sheriff's Civilian Oversight Commission that when the sheriffs get busted, they get handed off and things get dropped. And I had a real bad case. I have a hostage situation with a family member. I need to recover her, my daughter. Her name's Josie Harlan. She was born in 1985. She was kidnapped from Henry Mayo Hospital by LA County sheriffs and some political figures. I'm not sure who, but I haven't been able to find out what happened to her or recover her body. It's been since 2009. There's people in the Civilian Oversight Commission that are implicated in that or directly involved. And also further insult and that they gamified the political system in my electoral district using my property and my population to send people to political office and claim immunity. And that they don't deserve that immunity, that they're past going to jail too. That something else needs to happen, that this has caused the LA County sheriffs to become way off their tax base, that they are not allowed to collect any money from any of my properties as a result. I know that they make money selling weed, but I know not that much. That something really needs to be done about that. Sorry, I don't want to sound threatening, but you can't have that many sheriffs assembling barbecue grills in the garage for their retirement. It's not going to work. And I don't mean to sound insulting, but I need something done. They sent imposters to replace my family members. I wasn't ever even able to recover their bodies. And I wasn't able to bury them or find out what happened to them. They were murdered. And there's a cover up. In fact,
So sorry.
Thank you.
We need to observe the time. I think that concludes our agenda. I do want to make a request. I don't know, Mr. Executive Director, if we could ask our indefatigable chair of the Met Ad Hoc Committee if the committee could report anew on Met issues, because it appears to be an issue of concern for in many different quarters, including the sheriff. And Sheriff Luna, correct me if I'm wrong, the other members from the beginning, Bill and Patty, I believe this is the first time the elected sheriff has attended this meeting and stayed the entire time and participated with full engagement and open honesty, a good heart. I really, it's really quite impressive. And I just personally want to thank you and your management team for doing that. I hope we didn't scare you away, Sheriff. We tried to be good, but the issues are important. And so your presence here really matters. We are going to adjourn this. I'm sorry. Before we adjourn, we have an announcement regarding the ad hocs, which were at the beginning of the agenda, and I erroneously skipped.
Before, Sean, this one. Just want to make one request relevant to one of the public comments about an officer who has been rehired under a different agency. And given the commitment by this sheriff to make use of the registry system for police misconduct and the screening, the enhanced tools for screening that it provides, both in adding chronic cases of misconduct to that registry and to use it as a screening tool for the hiring, I do just want to raise the point referenced by Ms. Perez about reporting on the number of potential hires, again, in the context of the urgency of hiring and our goal of making sure that these vacancies are fulfilled. Nonetheless, if it might be possible to report on the numbers of instances where that registry came in handy, or in perhaps providing a screen in the hiring process for officers, or any LASD officers placed on that registry because of the commitment to make use of that registry. It would be helpful if there might be periodic reports to the commission about such placements or the utility of that screening tool.
Please allow us to look at that and see how we can look at that recommendation and see how, if we can comply. I don't see why not. SB2 changed a lot. I know our department is full-blown effort in trying to identify employees that fall under SB2 and how we can relay that information to this commission. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Sean. As you know, one of the longstanding, most difficult and immediate issues that this commission has been working on has been on the subject of deputy gangs in the sheriff's department. You will hopefully see at the next commission meeting in March, you will have information about the recommendations of this commission to the sheriff. And I fully expect that the sheriff and his department will wholeheartedly embrace those recommendations. And finally, for once, after 50 years, begin the process of eliminating deputy gangs in the sheriff's department. So stay tuned.
I know you and your council are currently monitoring this from afar and have notified me that I am procedurally remiss and that we have to vote on the two reports that Tracy presented to us. So can we take a vote? Can we vote on them combined, or do they have to separately? Combined. This is to adopt both of the reports that Tracy reported on in the recommendations there. So moved.
Okay. Commissioner Cooper?
Yeah.
Commissioner Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Chair Kennedy?
Yes.
Commissioner Rubin? Commissioner Giggins?
Yes.
Passes.
That's it. Okay, so we are going to adjourn. This commission will hold its next regular meeting on Thursday, March 16th, 2023. Do we know whether that is virtual or real?
We do not know.
We do not know, so look for us on the web.
Yes, thank you.
That's it. Thank you.